What's up, y'all? Happy Monday, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to Carving It Up Live. I am Bryson Carver. We got all kinds of stuff to talk about. The NFC Championship game, the AFC Championship game were just insane yesterday. So let's go ahead and get into it right now. Start the countdown. It's that time, y'all. We got a Super Bowl matchup. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Kansas City Chiefs. And before I get into any of that, I will say before the season started, I did pick this Super Bowl matchup, so I will give myself a little bit of credit there. But we got a lot to talk about today. Like I said, I'm going to talk about Tom Brady in just a second. Obviously, you had the Green Bay Packers with some issues situationally with Matt LaFleur. I'll discuss that a little later on as well. And Aaron Rodgers, he hinted possibly at leaving Green Bay. Now, is that the case? Is that going to happen? I'll discuss that later on in the show, as well as the great legacy of Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gigi Bryant, who tragically passed away in a helicopter accident a year ago tomorrow. So we'll get into that at the end of the show. But let's talk about the great Tom Brady. Tom Brady, say this out loud, he's going to his 10th Super Bowl. It's never been done before. Matter of fact, Tom Brady is going after his 11th ring. Or excuse me, his 7th ring, I should say. His 7th ring. No player in NFL history has even played in 7 Super Bowls. Okay? No player in NFL history has ever played in 7 Super Bowls. He's going after a 7th ring in his 10th Super Bowl. It's unbelievable. It's amazing. And when you talk about it, you see how some of the great quarterbacks have aged. You see Phillip Rivers. He just retired, right? It looked really limited at the end of the year with the Colts. Okay, you look at Drew Brees. Now, I know he was dealing with some injuries, his wife said especially, but man, even before that, his inability to throw the ball down the field, I feel like really held the Saints back from making a real run. Drew Brees, great as he is or great as he used to be, is the very reason I said I didn't believe the Saints would beat Tampa Bay or could be a Super Bowl contender had they advanced and played the Packers. Then I look at a team, or a quarterback, I should say, like Big Ben Roethlisberger. Got off to a good start, but man, he looked really, really limited at the end of the season. So all that combined, you look at everything going on with this, and Tom Brady is 43 years old, and he's going to be playing in his 10th Super Bowl. Matter of fact, I was on another show, Ryan Flowers, shout out Clutch Sports Talk, but I was on his show, and I was talking about, just how unbelievable it is. And Tom Brady, he's been in the NFL 21 years, right? 19 of his 21 seasons, he started majority of the seasons as the team's starting quarterback, right? Because his rookie year, he didn't start any games. Then he had the year where he tore his ACL the first game in 2008. Matt Castle took over, and the Patriots went 11-5. But you had a lot of situations where, Tom Brady got suspended the 4 games in 2016 for the Deflategate and whatever. But he's 19 of his 21 seasons. He's been the starting quarterback majority of the season. He's been in the conference championship 14 of those 19 years. Think about that. 14 out of 19 years, Tom Brady has at least gotten to 1 win away from the Super Bowl. You can't quantify that. You can't put that stuff into words. And, as Meek Mill said, there's levels to this. And you look at Tom Brady, and I said all of last season that, hey, this guy's got to get out of New England. I get it. It's, the Patriots and the mystique of Belichick and Bob Kraft, great owner, and playing at Gillette Stadium and having that great home field advantage in the playoffs. But I said that Tom Brady probably has the worst receiving core in the NFL. And you saw Cam Newton and how bad his receiving core was, right? It was rough. And so you look at this situation where, I called for Tom Brady to leave. I thought he was going to the Chargers. And he didn't go to the Chargers. He went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who had just went 7-9, who just had a quarterback in Jameis Winston, who threw 30 touchdowns, but also threw for 30 picks. So Tom Brady goes there. New coach, Bruce Arians. New offensive coordinator in Byron Leftwich, new receivers. And this thing called COVID-19 hits, and he doesn't really get an offseason. Now, I get it. Every player didn't. But we're talking about a 43-year-old quarterback who, for the previous 2 decades, have been in the same system. He goes to Florida, goes to Tampa Bay, and COVID hits, and there's no normal offseason. So he can't throw to his receivers in the offseason as much as he normally would. You know, those great receivers, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and obviously Gronk signed, and Bray, and before O.J. Howard hurt, he was really good, and Scotty Miller and guys like that. And he didn't get that normal offseason. No preseason. Yet and still, throughout all that, throughout all the chaos, all the like, how I can't believe Tom Brady left New England. Throughout all that, all he had to overcome, 43 years old, in the Super Bowl again. You can't put greatness into words. And you don't even try to. You know, I read today that Peyton Manning, who in my mind is the 3rd greatest quarterback ever behind Brady and Montana, Peyton Manning is going to be eligible for the Hall of Fame this year. And the Hall of Fame committee, according to reports, discussed Peyton Manning's eligibility for the Hall of Fame for 13 seconds. I mean, what more is there to say? Like, of course, Peyton Manning's a Hall of Famer. He's got, 2 rings. He's multiple MVPs, and I think he won 5 MVPs. He's had multiple records by the time he retired, passing touchdowns, passing yards. There's not a debate, right? He's obviously a Hall of Famer. Tom Brady should take about half a second. They should discuss Tom Brady. Don't even have the discussion. When Tom Brady retires, when he's 55 years old or whatever, don't even have the discussion for whether he's a Hall of Famer or not. Just make him the one exception. Just put him in the Hall of Fame 1 year after he retires. I mean, you can't put this stuff into words. At this point, here's what Tom Brady's going after. Because I believe when he beat Atlanta, when he came back from 28-3 to beat the Falcons, that cemented him as the greatest quarterback ever. I think most people believe that. Then once he got, although he didn't play that well in that Super Bowl against the Rams, once he got that 6th Super Bowl, that cemented him as the greatest NFL player ever, because he's got all these accolades, the 4 MVPs and the 6 rings, and he's threatening Breeze and Peyton at that time, passing yards, passing touchdowns, and he's far and away the leader in postseason wins. And this year, because he's got greatest quarterback ever down, nobody debate that. He's got greatest NFL player down. I don't think anybody would debate that either. At this point, he's chasing greatest American athlete ever. I mean, think about that. A 6th-round pick out of Michigan, pick 199, 21 years later, could be one win away from becoming the greatest American athlete ever. We acknowledge a lot of people. Michael Jordan probably more than anybody, right? Michael Jordan's the GOAT in basketball, of course. Brady's the GOAT in the NFL. But he would surpass Jordan in rings. I think they would be equal in MVPs, if I remember correctly. And I get while Jordan went undefeated in those finals, but think about Joe Montana. Joe Montana went to 4 Super Bowls, right? Went 4-0, won all 4. But once Brady passed him in rings, it was like, okay, by that time, Tom Brady had been to 7 Super Bowls and won 5. It's like, okay, we got to put him ahead of Montana. And now, 10 Super Bowls appearances. It'll be 10 Super Bowl appearances 13 days from now. And he's going to go down as possibly the greatest American athlete ever, and is still playing great at the age of 43. It's unbelievable. You can't put it into words. So there was another game last night, AFC Championship game. Defending champion Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Buffalo Bills. I said for about a month that I believe Buffalo was Kansas City's biggest threat to, obviously stop them from going to the Super Bowl. But I compared the Kansas City Chiefs for right before the playoffs started. I compared them to the 2018 Golden State Warriors. Now, I'm a Warriors fan. You can't see, but I'm wearing my Warriors hoodie. And Kansas City reminded me of 2018 Golden State. Here's why. So the 2017 Warriors, right? That was the first year with Kevin Durant. And they were just, so dominant. It was ridiculous, right? I mean, they'd be down 5 and then be up 25 by the end of a quarter. I mean, it would be insane. The Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond wreaking havoc on defense and KD doing his thing, dropping 30 in his sleep. a great bench. Livingston and Iguodala and David West and JaVale McGee. Like, it's great coach and Steve Kerr. It was just, I hate to use this word in sports, but it was unfair. And last year, now Kansas City wasn't as dominant last year as Golden State was, the first year with Kevin Durant, obviously. The Chiefs went 12-4. They didn't go, 15-1. But they got off to, I believe, a 7-4 start. Then they reeled off 5 straight wins. So they momentum going into the playoffs. Okay, they go on. I get they trailed in all their games, in all their postseason games by at least double digits, but it didn't matter. You have Patrick Mahomes, you have Andy Reid, Tyreek Hill, and Travis Kelce, and Sammy Watkins, and Mecole Hardman. It's insane, right? And so, and by the way, you have a great running game. So I mean, that Kansas City, added that this year, a great running game to an already unbelievable offense. And so you look at this situation where the Chiefs go into this season as the Super Bowl champs. And over the last month of the season, kind of teetering a little bit, not looking so great. But again, it doesn't matter, right? Because I said, people are getting high on Buffalo and like, oh, Pittsburgh won that game against the Colts, and maybe Cleveland out of nowhere could come in and beat Kansas City. No. Kansas City was clearly the best team in the AFC this year. No doubt about it. They were just like Golden State did in 2018. Golden State did not play well whatsoever that last month and a half of the season. But once the playoffs came up, it's like, okay, they gentlemen sweep in the first round in 5 games, gentlemen sweep in the second round. They had a scare against Houston in the conference finals, and then they swept the finals. Like, everybody knew who the best team was deep down, but nobody really wanted to admit it. That's the case with Kansas City. Everybody was like Buffalo and earlier that season, Pittsburgh at 11-0 and they're looking good, and Cleveland gets on a roll, and Cleveland came that close to beating Kansas City a week ago. Doesn't matter. They're the best team in the NFL. They are the best team in the NFL. There's no question about it. And you look at the situation where they're down 9-0, and Mecole Hardman muffs the punt. Buffalo recovers it. Next play, they score a touchdown, and from that moment on, I've heard this a lot in the media, but it's true. It's factually true. It's unbelievable. The Chiefs went on a 38-6 run over the next 2.5 quarters. There's nothing you could do to stop that. Something else I was saying last night when I was on the other show, Clutch Sports Talk, is that when you combine the best quarterback, the best offensive coach, Patrick Mahomes, best quarterback, Andy Reid, best offensive coach, fastest receiver in Tyreek Hill, best tight end in Travis Kelce, who, by the way, had he not sat out in week 17 against the Chargers because the Chiefs had nothing to play for, had he not sat out, he had the possibility of leading the league in receiving as a tight end. It's again, a word I'll use again, it's unfair. It's amazing how, this much talent together could be this dominant, right? In the NFL. You could see this in college. Alabama this year was just, they had the great running back, the great college quarterback. They had the Heisman Trophy winner as a receiver, Devontae Smith, and other guys contributing, and a great defense. It was just like, it's hard to beat. You can see teams dominating like this in college. We've seen this, especially in the Big 12, right? Which is, where Patrick Mahomes came from. Like he played Patrick Mahomes a few years ago, Texas Tech versus Oklahoma. Patrick Mahomes played Baker Mayfield, I should say. And the final score was like 73-66 or something insane. Mahomes threw for like 800 yards, crazy. But we see that in college football all the time. But you don't see this. You only see it ever so often, every, 15 years or so, right? You saw it with the greatest show on turf, who only won 1 Super Bowl, by the way. You saw it with the 2007 Patriots, that went 18-0 until they ran into the New York Giants with, defensively, Michael Strahan and Justin Tuck and Onyemara. I hope I'm saying his name right. But, some ballers on that defense, and, they got shut down. But we only see offenses like this that just run over people every so often. So I wouldn't say similar to Brady, enjoy it while you have it, but man, you're not just going to see this every year from other teams like you do with the Kansas City Chiefs. This is hard to replicate. It's hard to It's hard to get the best quarterback, the best offensive coach, the fastest receiver, and the best tight end on one squad, on one offense. By the way, again, you add a great running game. Kansas City ran for well over 100 yards. Then you add Sammy Watkins, who should be healthy 2 weeks from now for the Super Bowl, who can fly. Mecole Hardman, after he muffed the punt, he had the long play that got Kansas City in position to score. You got fast receivers, best quarterback arm in the league, among other things, obviously talent-wise with Patrick Mahomes. It's just insane. And Buffalo was overwhelmed. Buffalo is a great football team. Make no mistake about it. Josh Allen has some issues with decision-making. He takes some inexcusable sacks in games sometimes, but Buffalo's a great team. There's nothing they could have done to stop this Chiefs offense. Now, I think Sean McDermott's a great coach. I didn't like twice in the red zone selling for 3 points instead of, trying, especially at the end of the half. They're at the 2-yard line. Man, you're not going to beat Kansas City with field goals. I mean, you're just not. And so I wish they had gone for it there. Possibly could have made it a little more interesting, but Kansas City just looks, insane. They look literally unbeatable. So let me shift back to the Packers Bucks game, NFC Championship game. And obviously there's a lot of things that people are talking about. I haven't seen the ratings from this game quite yet. I probably should have checked that. But you look at, this was the game that everybody was hyped up for, right? It's Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady in the playoffs. Like that's tough to beat right there. And you had multiple situations in this game where, there were some questionable calls. The one pass interference. I know Green Bay Packers fans were freaking out about this. I don't think I would have thrown the flag because they didn't call that. The rest of the game, or they didn't call that much in the game at all before that. I think there was like 5 penalties in the whole game. I don't think there was a single penalty in the first half. So, the refs, they let them play, which you'd rather that than it just be, yellow flags on the green carpet, right? On the gridiron. So I'd rather them let them play than just, throwing flags all over the place. So I didn't love the call, but if you watch the replay, that was clearly pass interference. He grabbed his jersey. And so that was, I didn't have much of a problem with that. But I always say anytime fans, and I haven't heard this necessarily from Packers fans the way I did like Saints fans a few years ago when, there was the inexcusable missed pass interference call, right? Like nobody would dispute that. That was clearly pass interference in that Saints-Rams game. But the problem I had was Saints fans were talking about, well, that's the reason we lost the game. It was a small reason. It was a reason. It wasn't the reason. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a game where you find one reason, like literally that is the only reason you lost the game. If you lose, there's a lot of factors that go into losing a football game and losing a game in any sport. But, with the Saints, they'd say, oh, we got robbed. Well, you did get robbed on that play, but you had the long play to get it into field goal range with 2 minutes left. It's a tie game against the Rams. And the clock management is just terrible. And the Rams had one timeout left. And so the Saints could have ran it down well under a minute, kick the field goal. The game's basically over. But instead, Sean Payton gets a little cue, throw the ball a couple times, and they settle for the field goal. But you can get a stop. You can get one stop, and you're going to the Super Bowl. And they couldn't get the stop. Rams go down the field, kick the field goal, tie the game. And a lot of times, I don't know how this works. It just seems like every time a team gets quote unquote robbed in the playoffs or in any game, they seem if it goes to overtime, it seems like they always lose the coin toss. Well, the Saints won the coin toss, and Drew Brees threw an interception. Rams got it, kicked the field goal, ball game. And so in this situation with the Packers, and again, I'm not saying this like bash Packers fans because I really haven't heard that many talking about the issue with the refs and stuff. But, my thing is you had the ball in the red zone twice in 2 crucial situations, one in the first half and one obviously late in the game, which as you can see I'm about to talk about. But you kicked 2 field goals. And I think Fox actually showed the stat during the game that, before their first red zone gaff, that they're like 80% in the red zone, something crazy. So they're borderline automatic in that area. But couldn't cash in. Devontae dropped the pass. Aaron missed some throws. But I want to specifically talk about Matt LaFleur. Now, I've said from the beginning since really last season, I like Matt LaFleur. I think he's a good coach. He's certainly an upgrade. We've seen, in Dallas, we've seen Mike McCarthy. We've seen that Matt LaFleur is clearly an upgrade from Mike McCarthy. That doesn't necessarily mean he's McVay or Kyle Shanahan or Belichick or Sean Payton. Like he's not. It helps when you have one of the greatest talents ever to play the quarterback position. But I want to preface what I'm about to say with I'm not anti-analytics. Matter of fact, I think you have to use analytics to a certain degree in order to be successful. Certainly in the NFL, in baseball, it's used quite a bit. But I feel like when you get into playoff games, you're in tight, do-or-die playoff games, and you're scratching your head like, what should we do next? Should we listen to the analytics guys, or should I go with my gut? And Matt LaFleur, obviously, either listen to what the analytics guys told him previously. I don't know if they told him this before the game, some point in the season, I don't know. But that was clearly an analytics decision made right there by Matt LaFleur to be down 8. And I know, people are freaking out about Aaron Rodgers not running through that hole. I'm not 100% he would have scored because I think that was Devin White who was right there, who had a heck of a game. The whole Tampa Bay defense had a heck of a game. But Devin White's right there. Aaron Rodgers could have gotten clobbered because, he is a runner. He is, you can hit him however you want as long as you don't go helmet to helmet or horse collar. Everything else is pretty much legal. So I don't know if Aaron could have scored in that third down play. But the fourth down situation, I think every fan in America, I think, every Packers fan, I think every Bucks fan, every NFL fan, we all kind of thought, we just thought, Packers are going to go for it, right? And they're down 8 with 2 minutes left and opportunity to tie the game. You're at the 8-yard line. You're 8 yards away and a 2-point conversion away from this being a tie game, and the Packers coming back from 18 points down to tie it. And then you put the heat back on Tom Brady, and we've seen how he handles pressure situations. He's amazing. But you want to at least get to that point. And so Matt LaFleur, with the guy who I believe will and should be the MVP, and that's Aaron Rodgers, of course, he decides, you know what? I'm going to take the ball out of Aaron's hands right here, put it on the foot of my kicker, make the field goal, and trust that my defense, which had struggled all game, to get a stop. And so, and I understand, listen, I was trying to psychoanalyze the whole situation as it was playing out, is I understand, you say you're down 8. The best thing you can do is tie them with a 2-point conversion, right? But my thing was, you got to score a touchdown anyway at some point. Whether it's to win the game, whether you kick the field goal, you're still going to need a touchdown to win the game. So you want worst case scenario for it to get to overtime. And as far, like I said, about analytics, again, it goes back to something I've said. I said this back when the Dodgers played the Rams, or excuse me, the Dodgers played the Rays. I was thinking about 2 LA teams there. When the Dodgers played the Rays in the World Series a few months ago. And it was Game 6. Rays have a 1-run lead. Blake Snell, who isn't a Ray anymore, he was dealing, man. He was unhittable the whole night. And, the Dodgers could do nothing against him. And he gives up a base hit. There might have been a double. He gives up a hit. And Kevin Cash, who I think is a great manager, I do. Kevin Cash comes out and takes the ball out of the best player on the diamond, because Blake Snell that night was the best player on that baseball field. He goes to the mound, takes the ball out of the hands of his pitcher, and hands it to a reliever, and the Rays do not score a single run after that, and they give up 3 to the Dodgers. They lose the game, and in that game, they lost the World Series. And my thing was, if you're relying on analytics, if you're in a situation where you're here or here, you don't know what decision to make, you're kind of weighing the options in your head. Think about this. Does the opposition want me to make one of these decisions? If they want you to make this decision A, you make this decision B. They don't want you to make that decision, right? It's common sense. The Bucks wanted Matt LaFleur to kick the field goal. If you asked, if you just stop the game, if there had been like a timeout, like a 2-minute timeout, and you asked every Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan and frankly every Tampa Bay Buccaneers player, would you rather them kick the field goal and hand it back to your offense where there's pressure, you don't want to give the ball back to Aaron Rodgers, but you can also run the clock out and you're going to the Super Bowl, or Aaron Rodgers gets one more play to try and tie the game before the 2-minute warning? You would have absolutely said, hey, please kick the field goal. I don't want to have to worry about Aaron Rodgers making another big play. I trust our offense. We've moved the ball well. We've ran the ball well. We can get a few first downs and ice this game out, right? And so that was obviously not going through Matt LaFleur's head. He kicks the field goal. Tampa Bay, who had ran the ball really well all night, got not amazing, but they didn't run the ball seem like that much. But in those key clutch situations, they ran the ball well. And even before that, when Brady threw those 2 terrible interceptions, I don't know what Tom was thinking there. When he threw those 2 bad interceptions, Tampa Bay still went right down the field with a shot to get points. And, after that 3rd interception, they go right down the field again, get a field goal, which made it an 8-point game. And they get the ball back, get a few first downs, game over. Bucs are going to the Super Bowl and hosting the Super Bowl, which has never been done before. But on Matt LaFleur's part, I understand going in the direction of analytics. I get it. I understand. But if you're just in life, guys, if you're making a decision, you're weighing the 2 options. Okay, you're competing against somebody in anything. Sports, business, whatever, school. If you're weighing the options and you say, okay, does my opposition want me to make this decision? Oh, they do. So I'm going to make this decision. I don't want to give them some kind of opportunity to take advantage of my mistake, which is totally on me. And that mistake was on Matt LaFleur, 100%. So, like I said, we had some unbelievable games yesterday, guys. I mean, you had a close game between 2 of the, in my mind, 7 greatest quarterbacks ever. Obviously, Tom's the GOAT. Aaron's about 6 or 7 in my mind. And then you had last night just greatness on display with the Kansas City Chiefs, who look to be poised to be the next NFL dynasty. Now, as far as the Super Bowl, we're 2 weeks out from that. Okay, I've got, I've got about 6 shows, before Super Bowl 55. So I'm not predicting nothing yet. Now, before the season, if I'm being honest, I did pick Tampa Bay to beat Kansas City in Super Bowl 55. Before the year started, I said they'd host the Super Bowl. They beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And also, I will say this as well. The Bucs went 11-5. I predicted that before the season. They did not win the NFC South. I predicted that as well. They won a road wild card game, predicted that. Won a road divisional game in New Orleans, which I predicted. And won the NFC Championship game on the road, which I also predicted. So, I might as well continue to ride with what's working. I'm 10-2 prediction wise in the playoffs, and hopefully I can finish this thing 11-2. So, like I said, just a lot of craziness going on, right? And Aaron Rodgers was talking after the game about his future in Green Bay, and he said a lot of people's future in Green Bay is in question, including mine. Okay. So let me defend Aaron Rodgers on this. I thought Aaron outplayed Tom Brady yesterday. As great, Tom was amazing in the first half. But Aaron, if you look at totality, Aaron had a better completion percentage, same amount of touchdown passes, but 2 fewer picks. Had a way better way better quarterback or passer rating, and threw for more yards. He was the better quarterback on the field. Now, he wasn't perfect. I thought, to me, the thing that not enough people have talked about is when Tom throws those 2 interceptions, and that Tampa Bay defense steps up and forces back-to-back 3-and-outs. After, again, the first interception, it was a touch high off of Evans' fingertips. Tom's going to make a better throw than that. You could argue, well, Evans should have, caught it maybe off the deflection. Tom's got to hit that throw better. He knows that. He's certainly capable of hitting those throws. The second throw was just, It was bad on the part of Brady and Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette completely misses the block. I believe it was on Preston Smith, who was coming off the edge. And Tom just flings it up in the direction of, I think, Mike Evans. And Jair Alexander, who is an amazing corner. In my mind, he's the second best corner in football behind Jalen Ramsey. He goes up, 2 straight interceptions. And both of those picks, when it feels like, oh boy, Green Bay's got all the momentum. Tampa Bay, 3 and out, 3 and out. That's championship football right there. And really all postseason long, I feel like the Bucs have had a great run defensively. They certainly weren't perfect against Washington in the wild card game against Taylor Heineke, the third or fourth string quarterback. But they made the plays they had to win the game. Last week against the Saints, they forced 4 turnovers, and I believe that was the biggest reason the Bucs won last week. This week, I think just across the board is complimentary football because Tampa Bay did what they had to do on offense. Again, Brady threw 3 picks. 2 of them were on him. Like 2 of them those last 2 were 100% on Tom Brady. And still the Bucs scored 31. The play before the half, I mean, you go for it on 4th down. And then basically a play later, 6 seconds left. And I'm thinking, they're just going to try and get one out of bounds, stop the clock, kick a field goal before halftime. And instead, Tom Brady drops back, and it was terrible coverage by Kevin King. I don't know what Kevin King was thinking on this play, but Tom just throws a beauty to Scotty Miller down the left sideline for the touchdown before the half to put Tampa Bay up by 2 scores going into the locker room going into halftime. But I just thought that was huge. And then defensively, again, I talked about the 3 and outs. They did force 2 turnovers. The Aaron Jones fumble and the Aaron Rodgers interception, which set up the long touchdown I just talked about to Scotty Miller before the half. But Aaron Rodgers, like I said, he outplayed Tom Brady yesterday. Great as Tom is, he's the GOAT. I love Tom Brady, but Aaron Rodgers outplayed him yesterday. But this is not the first time in the last year that we've heard Aaron Rodgers hint at a possible retirement. This is not the first time. And so I look at this and I say, he must be really intent on leaving. I think at this point, he's got something to prove to Green Bay because in his career, and I talked about this on Friday's podcast, is that of all the 4 quarterbacks, of any player in the National Football League that played yesterday in either the AFC or the NFC Championship game, Aaron Rodgers had by far the most pressure, especially other quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes, had he lost yesterday, I'd be like, he's still amazing. He's still great. Kansas City's going to be back next year. Josh Allen, look at the leap he made year 1 to year 2 and year 2 to year 3. It's like he's going to keep getting better and better. Tom Brady, he's got 6 rings. He's a 43-year-old quarterback who got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to the NFC Championship game. But Aaron Rodgers, with a loss, which of course they did lose yesterday, he's now 1-4 in NFC Championship games. Now, obviously, the first one they won at Chicago. The second one that Aaron played in was in Seattle. And I will defend Aaron on that game because Green Bay special teams and defense, that was the all-time choke job. That was the all-time choke job. Because, Aaron's on a bad calf. That they don't convert in the red zone. I get it. But you have a 19-7 lead with just over 2 minutes left. Seattle only has 1 timeout. Seattle scores the touchdown. 1-score game. But you're like, okay, we can still get the ball back. We can run the clock out. We're going to the Super Bowl. And some rookie tight end, I think he was a rookie, some tight end on the hands team of the Packers, I think his name is Brandon Bostic, muffs the onside kick. Seattle recovers. Seattle goes down the field and scores. And they get the 2-point conversion. 3-point lead for Seattle in basically 30 seconds after being down 12. Rodgers drives them down the field. They tie the game. Then Russell Wilson, in Russell Wilson fashion, comes up clutch. Seattle wins the game on a touchdown in overtime over the top to Jermaine Kearse. And so the Packers' defense and the special teams was clearly the main reason they lost that NFC Championship game to Seattle in 2014. His next NFC Championship game, I can't defend him on. He was terrible against Atlanta. He had a bad QBR, bad passer rating. You could say, well, he threw for a lot of yards. Most of those yards were in garbage time. So it didn't, game was over. Atlanta just blew them off the field. Then last year, he's in the NFC Championship game at San Francisco. And like I predicted before the game, they got blown off the field. Wasn't close. And Aaron was not good in that game. But yesterday, I think there's plenty of blame to go around. Some blame for Aaron, some blame on the Packers. I'll start with Aaron. I said on Friday, the reason he's got the most pressure, and I detailed it a little bit with the other quarterbacks, but Aaron Rodgers for years, especially this year, he's like, man, it would mean a lot to get the number one seed, to get home field advantage, and to get the NFC Championship game in Lambeau Field. Because up until yesterday, Aaron Rodgers had never played an NFC Championship game at Lambeau Field. And so he gets that opportunity. He, and by the way, he gets an upgraded coach. He wanted for years. He couldn't stand Mike McCarthy. And so we're like, okay, we'll get you an upgrade from Mike McCarthy, Matt LaFleur. And again, Matt LaFleur isn't Sean McVay or Kyle Shanahan or Andy Reid. He's a good coach, but he's still an upgrade from Mike McCarthy. So they get an upgraded coach. Then for years, he's like, man, my defense is terrible. Okay, we get you an upgrade on defense. We'll go after guys in free agency, go after guys in the draft, stock up on defensive players. So their defense was better this year than it had been in years past. And oh, by the way, who saw this coming? But the Packers played a warm weather team in 25-degree weather. And so they got that bonus almost. And yet and still they weren't able to pull it out. And again, Aaron wasn't perfect. He wasn't. He threw the interception that ended up costing Green Bay 7 points, and they lost by 8. So obviously that was a pivotal point in that game yesterday. But I just feel like when I look across the board and I look at Matt LaFleur making that, I don't want to say boneheaded, but confusing call with just over 2 minutes left in the game, relying on analytics instead of Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to take Aaron Rodgers before analytics any day of the week. But Aaron basically said last night, my future and the future of guys on this team, it's all uncertain with the Green Bay Packers. And last year, he's on the Pat McAfee show, right? Pat McAfee was former punter. He's with the Colts. He's now a comedian. He's got his own show. And Aaron is on his show every Tuesday. And Aaron, before the season started, he joked around, hey, maybe I might play for the Chicago Bears. You don't hear quarterbacks who are not intent on leaving joke about, well, I might play for our biggest rival. Like Tom Brady never said, hey, I might play over there with the New York Jets one day. I might, if Drew Brees never said it, I'm going to play with the Atlanta Falcons one day, or Patrick Mahomes has never said, I'm going to play for the Raiders one day. Dak Prescott, a guy who I've said, Dak, get out of Dallas. He hasn't said, I'm going to play for the Philadelphia Eagles. You're not going to say that unless you're actually intent on leaving. You're not. And so I think at the end of the day with Aaron, I think he's frustrated. He's frustrated. And again, he deserves some blame for that loss yesterday. Because on back-to-back possessions, the Green Bay defense forced back-to-back turnovers, right? And so Green Bay comes out on the field offensively and 2 3-and-outs. And I thought, I didn't understand this. It seemed like after that one possession where, they went down the field and got in the red zone, got to like the 5-yard line, I think, and Devontae Adams drops the touchdown, and then Aaron misses him. It was bad timing on Aaron's part, misses Adams in the end zone on 3rd and goal. And so I feel like after that, he kind of went away from Devontae Adams, who we all acknowledge is a top 3 receiver in the league, and Aaron loves Devontae, but it felt like he went away from him way too early. It's not like Devontae, he wasn't amazing yesterday. He only had like 67 yards receiving, but he wasn't dropping balls and bad routes and missing blocks in the run game, or he hadn't fumbled or anything like that. Like he really didn't get that many opportunities. And so I feel like Aaron kind of bailed on him too early. And so he deserves blame. But on the other end with the Packers, again, you got to say this out loud. The one Super Bowl Aaron Rodgers won, The one Super Bowl Aaron Rodgers won, that was the only time in his career he had a top 10 defense. Give Aaron Rodgers a great defense. Like they're seem like they're a great defense away from being, amazing. But again, he deserves blame, but the Packers deserve blame as well. But no, I do not believe Aaron Rodgers will finish his career in Green Bay, because I think them drafting Jordan Love last year in the first round, better yet, trading up to get Jordan Love in the first round last year, I think that was the straw that broke the camel's back, and that was pretty much it from that point on. And so I think Aaron's going to be a Packer next year. I don't think he's going to do what Deshaun Watson's doing right now, which I totally agree with Deshaun. I've said that many times on the show. I don't think Aaron's going to try and do what Deshaun's doing this year, but possibly next year. If Green Bay, say they get to the NFC Championship again next year, which is highly possible because they have Aaron Rodgers, of course. If they get to the NFC Championship game and Packers score 31, but, the opposition scores 35 or 38 or 42, he's like, he might be like, okay, I've asked y'all for a decade to give me a great defense, and you haven't done it. The front office hasn't done it. The coach is making questionable calls, right? And so I think it's highly possible Aaron leaves Green Bay next year. Not this year, but next year. Boy, Chicago would like to have him though, right? After him tormenting them for all those years. But again, we had some amazing football yesterday. I also just read a few minutes ago in the NBA that Chris Paul and the Players Association are trying to get the All-Star game back, because Adam Silver said before the season, due to COVID and everything, we're not going to have the All-Star game. And so I was like, okay, I understand that. It's, it's going to suck to not have an All-Star game, but I understand it. But apparently the Players Association is fighting back and saying, hey, we could use the All-Star game for revenue, and also, who doesn't like playing in the All-Star game? Like, if you're named an All-Star, you want to play in the game, right? And so, yeah, I like it, and we'll see how that story develops, and very likely I'll discuss that in the show to continue, to be continued. So, today's obviously it's January 25th. Year ago tomorrow will be the 1 year anniversary that we lost Kobe Bryant, his daughter Gigi Bryant, and 7 others in a tragic helicopter crash. And let me pull up. Let me go. I should have had it ready, but let me go and pull up, because I want to honor her wishes. Obviously, Vanessa Bryant, the widow of Kobe Bryant, and I'm sure that the rest of the media will as well, and the rest of everybody. But Vanessa said recently, I guess I can't find it here apparently. Oh well. Oh, here we go. So Vanessa Bryant, not too long ago, this was posted on January 16th. She said, "Dear media, please be considerate when airing or posting remembrance footage. We ask that you do not air photos of the wreckage, helicopter in the air, or accident scene. We do not want to see it. Our year has been traumatic enough. You have thousands of photos and videos you can show, besides footage of January 26, 2020. We hope videos of remembrance are done in a classy and tasteful manner that is respectful of all our losses. Thank you." And she put the heart emoji at the end. So in respect to Vanessa's wishes, let's discuss the legacy of Kobe Bryant. And let's discuss, and it just kicks you in the stomach to say this about a 13-year-old, but the legacy of Gigi as well. And obviously, everybody knows Kobe Bryant, right? In my mind, the 4th greatest basketball player of all time. I believe Jordan's 1, LeBron's 2. I put Kareem at 3, and Kobe Bryant as the 4th greatest player of all time. We all remember a few days ago was actually the anniversary of his 81-point game against the Toronto Raptors. And in one of my favorite Kobe stories ever, we talk about the Mamba mentality, right? It was, he was the ultimate. You want to talk about killer will? Kobe Bryant was killer will on steroids. It was unbelievable. But they played a game. The Lakers played a game that season, the season where Kobe scored 81 points. They're playing the Mavericks. Early January or late December. And Kobe has 65 points in 3 quarters. And after the 3rd quarter ends, they go in the 4th quarter, and the Lakers are just blowing out the Mavericks. The game's over. And, it's garbage time. And Phil Jackson I think Brian Shaw is the name of the assistant coach that asked Kobe. He said, hey, you want to go back in the game, see if you can, maybe get 80, 70, 80. And Kobe said, nah, I'll get it another time. And sure enough, went back out in the court a few weeks later, dropped 81 points in the Toronto Raptors. We all know, obviously, before that, he was teammates with Shaquille O'Neal, a duo which I consider the greatest duo in the history of basketball. I mean, and we've seen this in the past with great NBA duos, but that one was literally unstoppable, and they pretty much defeated themselves because you got Shaq, who in Shaq's prime, was the most dominant player in NBA history. Then you have Kobe, who's one of the best scorers in the game and one of the best scorers ever. You put those two together, and it's like, what are you going to do? You had guys like Derek Fisher and I'm trying. Oh my gosh, his name. Oh my gosh, I can't remember the guy's name. Rick Fox as well. They had some really good bench players, Tyronn Lue, and then you have Phil Jackson as the head coach. It's like that's stuff to beat. Phil Jackson, the greatest coach of all time, and so you look at them, and they won 3 straight championships. They're the last team to three-peat. The Heat threatened it in 2014 to three-peat. Golden State threatened to three-peat in 2019, but both came up short. And so the Lakers are the most recent team, the last team to win 3 straight NBA championships and three-peat, of course. But the 4th straight finals, the Lakers almost 4-peated, but then they ran into the Pistons, and at that point, Shaq and Kobe's relationship at that point in 2004 was beyond repair. And so they trade Shaq to the Heat. And Shaq wins a ring in 2006, 2 years later after they split. 2 years later, Shaq wins a championship with Dwayne Wade with the Miami Heat. And it's like, oh, Shaq won that breakup. And Kobe, a few years after that, he's like, man, I'm scoring 30 points a game in my sleep, but we're getting bounced in the first round every year. I need help. I'm not asking for Shaq. I'm not asking for like a top 3 player, but could you get me somebody? And lo and behold, 2007, 2008 season, they trade for Pau Gasol, one of the best big men in the game. And they get Pau Gasol. Lo and behold, Lakers get to the finals in 2008. They lose to Boston. And then in 2009, they beat Orlando in the finals in 5 games, gentleman's sweep. And then the finals after that, they played the Celtics, and Kobe wins his 5th championship, eclipsing Shaq, because Shaq won 4 titles in his career. Kobe won 5. And then after that, Kobe still scored a lot of points, but the Lakers were really never in contention from that point forward, and Kobe dealt with injuries. Of course, the Achilles tear, which I want to discuss as well. He tears his Achilles against Golden State late in that season. You could tell his heel had been bothering him the whole game, but he comes in. I think he might have scored 35 in that game, if I remember correctly. But he comes in that game. He's driving to the basket, and then his Achilles just gives out. It tears. And I've heard people who have torn their Achilles say it is one of the most painful injuries you could ever suffer. And of course, Kobe was in pain. But Kobe talked about it a few years ago with like a motivational speaker. And this guy was asking him, he said, I know this guy who said that he tore his Achilles and said it was just so painful. How did you even get up, let alone shoot the 2 free throws? Because Kobe was fouled on the play, let alone shoot the 2 free throws before then finally coming out of the game. And Kobe said, okay, I'm going to compare this to a situation. Say you like pulled your hamstring. I don't know. Or you tore your hamstring. And the doctor says, be off of it for whatever amount of time. Like, don't put any pressure on your hamstring. They're going to give you crutches, whatever. But don't put any pressure on your hamstring. But you're in the house with your family, and the house catches on fire. And he's like, you're going to disregard your injury to get your family out of the house, right? Because your family is more important than your injuries. It's obviously way higher on your priority list. And he said that was the way it was with me and my Achilles. My Achilles was killing me, but those 2 free throws meant more to me than my pain, which is just, again, you don't, these great athletes, these great actors, entertainers, business people, they're wired differently, right? They've just got this mentality like, man, you are not going to get in my way. Some way or another, I'm going to work my butt off and get it done. And that's the way Kobe was. And then his final game, of course, scored 60 points. He's exhausted at the end of that game, but he didn't miss a shot over the last 3 minutes or something like that, and went out with 60. But Kobe's his career post basketball, obviously he passed away last year at the age of 41. He only got to enjoy about 3.5 years of retirement, tragically. But his post-retirement career might have been the greatest of any player ever. Obviously, LeBron's going to have an amazing post-retirement career whenever he retires, whenever that may be. And certainly LeBron's amazing. So I'm not suggesting he's going to retire soon, but LeBron's going to have a great post-playing career whenever that comes about. You've had guys like Kareem, who's had a great post-playing career. Jordan, obviously. But Kobe, he never stopped working. He was always working at something. He's always looking to get better at something. And all of that culminated in, he directs and I think produces a short film called Dear Basketball. And if you haven't seen it, guys, you need to go online on YouTube as soon as this live stream is over and watch Dear Basketball. Before Kobe even passed, I watched it, and I'm telling you, it runs chills down your spine. It's amazing. And it culminates in he directs and produces Dear Basketball, and for that, Kobe Bryant won an Oscar. Think about that. I mean, how long did it take Spike Lee, the great Spike Lee, one of the best directors in the world? How long did it take Spike Lee to win an Oscar? 20, 30 years, something like that? How long did it take Leonardo DiCaprio, one of, if not the best actors in Hollywood, to win an Oscar? And Kobe Bryant, on his first try, disregarded this shut up and dribble narrative and wins an Oscar. Not only that, he had the Mamba Academy, which of course his daughter Gigi played in. And I'll talk about Gigi for just a second here. So her dad was on Jimmy Kimmel's show a few years ago, and Jimmy was asking him about Gianna. Her name is Gianna. Of course she went by Gigi, but he was asking Kobe about Gigi, and Kobe was talking about her. He said, man, she loves basketball. She works her butt off, and to get better every day. And Kimmel says, have you guys ever thought about, you and Vanessa ever thought about having a boy? And Kobe said at the time, he said, well, we'll see what happens. He said, but we've had people go down past us in the street and say, hey, you and V got to have a boy. You got to carry on the tradition. And Gigi would look at him and say, I got this. And so that's why it just breaks your heart even more that she never got the opportunity, to carry on that legacy of Kobe Bryant. But anybody that knew Kobe and Gigi, and certainly I never got the opportunity to know either, but anybody that was close with them, say Rob Pelinka, who was Kobe's agent, he's the general manager of the Lakers now, and he and a lot of other people who knew Kobe and Gigi said she was just like him. She looked like him. Her game, the way she played basketball, was similar to her dad. Her work ethic was amazing. And Michael Jordan spoke at Kobe and Gigi's memorial about a month after they passed, and he was saying Kobe was texting me and saying, "Hey, could you give me tips on how to teach my daughter how to shoot the fadeaway?" He said, "When did you start shooting the fadeaway?" Jordan was the king of the fadeaway. He was the greatest fadeaway shot hitter ever. And of course, Kobe was amazing at it too. He was top 3 or 4. And Kobe asked Jordan, he said, "Hey, how can I give her pointers on how to shoot this fadeaway? When do you start shooting it?" He said, "I don't know. When I was 15 years old, I was playing baseball when I was 11, 12. I wasn't working on the fadeaway." And Gigi at 11, 12 years old, she's like, "I want to develop a fadeaway. I want to get better at the game I love." And it's just, again, tomorrow it's going to be 1 year since that terrible day. And I'm telling you, it still don't feel real, guys. It still, to this day, does not feel real that they're both really gone. And of course, the 7 others who tragically passed in that helicopter crash. But may they rest in peace. Their legacies will live forever. And they left unbelievable legacies. So that's all the time we have for today on the show. Thank you guys so much for watching live. If you're listening to the podcast, it was uploaded at 8 p.m. Eastern on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Anchor, and wherever you listen to your podcast. So hope everybody has a great evening. Please continue to stay safe and join us on Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, right here on YouTube, Facebook Live, and we'll probably get Twitter. Instagram, for some reason, didn't work, so we'll probably just instead do Twitter as the third streaming service. So Twitter, Facebook Live, YouTube, catch us Thursday. Yeah, God bless y'all. Peace out.